start with this. A bit of disappointing news for the reigning two-division champion, Senicia Estrada. The WBO issues a show cause letter to Senicia Estrada regarding junior flyweight title reign. Portion of the article reads, Senicia Estrada is now on the clock to justify her straddling title reigns in two divisions. The unbeaten East Los Angeles native has been issued a 5-day period to justify her current WBO junior flyweight title reign whilst campaigning in another division. The sanctioning body presented Estrada and Golden Boy Promotions with a show cause to inform her intentions at junior flyweight in order to avoid being stripped of the title. Estrada is due to defend her WBA strawweight division versus unbeaten contender Maria Santizo as part of a Loaded Zone show set for December the 18th. The WBO World Championships Committee hereby grants WBO female junior flyweight champion Ms. Senicia Estrada 5 days upon issuance of this notice letter to show cause why the committee shall not declare the WBO Junior Flyweight Championship title vacant. Luis Batista Salas, chairman of the WBO Championships Committee, noted to Golden Boy Promotions president Eric Gomez via an official letter, a copy of which has been obtained by BoxingScene.com. Holding titles simultaneously in different weight divisions, the WBA minimum weight title and the WBO Junior Flyweight Championship, in contravention with WBO regulations of World Championship contests. As you are aware, Ms. Estrada is scheduled to defend her WBA minimum weight championship against Ms. Santizo on Saturday, December 18th, 2021 at the AT&T Center in San Antonio, Texas. Per WBO rules and regulations, no WBO champion may hold titles in more than one weight division, nor may hold a non-WBO championship in a weight class that is different from the weight class of their WBO championship. Considering the foregoing, be advised that Ms. Estrada shall decide within the time frame stated herein which weight division will retain, or the WBO World Championship Committee will proceed in accordance with its governing rules, note Salas. Failure to comply with this order will result in Ms. Estrada waiving all rights hereunder and having the committee declaring the WBO Junior Flyweight Championship title vacant, ipso facto, without further notice and or hearing. Lastly, the committee reserves the right to issue any rulings necessary, helpful, and convenient to accomplish the purposes, policies, and intent of the WBO's regulations.
This is unfortunate,
but it is consistent with their rules and regulations. It is consistent with the WBO's practices. This is not anomalous, not an anomalous occurrence by any stretch of the imagination. Not that long ago, reigning WBO Super Bantamweight champion Dina Thorslund moved down in weight and picked up the vacant WBO title at 118 pounds. She moved from 122 down to 118. And then, like now, the WBO, they put her on the spot. They told her, you can't hold on to two versions of the same title at two weights. You've got to make a decision.
She did. She held on to the 118-pound version of the title.
The 122-pound version of the title, that went vacant and stayed vacant up until recently when France's own Sigurling Lefebvre picked it up. So now Dina's the WBO champion at bantamweight, and Sigurling Lefebvre is the WBO champion at super bantamweight. Though I reiterate, this is all consistent with their rules and regulations. They did it to Dina.
They did it to Clarissa Shields.
Upon Clarissa Shields' descent from middleweight down to junior middleweight, that undisputed campaign, the WBO title that she held at middleweight, it went vacant. That's how Savannah Marshall got it.
They put Clarissa Shields on the spot.
WBO did. And I'm fairly confident they're going to put her on the spot again early next year when she returns to the middleweight division. Clarissa Shields picked up all the belts at 154 pounds, and she's all but done there now. She's returning to the middleweight division, where she still holds 3 alphabet titles. So it's conceivable that in the very near future, between now and her next fight, the WBO is going to put her on the spot too.
If they haven't already.
3 of the 4 major titles that Clarissa Shields picked up at 154 pounds, they have since gone vacant. 3 of the 4. The WBA title, that went vacant and was subsequently picked up by Hannah Rankin. The IBF title has gone vacant, and it's set to be picked up by Marie-Eve Dicaire in her next fight. The WBC title has gone vacant. Patricia Bergould, she fought for it very recently, and the only title remaining is the WBO title.
If it hasn't been vacated already.
It soon will be, because Clarissa Shields, like Senicia Estrada, she's a multi-weight champion in possession of alphabet titles at 2 weights. She has simultaneously held titles at both junior middleweight and middleweight. And her next fight, it's not a junior middleweight contest, junior middleweight where she held the WBO. Her next contest, it's a middleweight contest.
Early next year against Emma Kozin.
Thus, the WBO putting Senicia Estrada on the spot the way that they are, it's no anomalous occurrence. It is actually consistent with what they do. Now, why they do it? Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe it's because they feel it alienates fighters that might want to fight for that WBO title to have that champion in a different division defending a different title instead of the one they hold with them, the WBO. Perhaps that's why they do it. Last I spoke to Senicia Estrada, she informed me about the Maria Santizo fight, but she also informed me that early next year, she's set to be unifying titles with Costa Rica's own Yo Costavalle in the minimum weight division.
Not the junior flyweight division where she holds that WBO title.
And essentially what that means is that WBO junior flyweight title, it's not going to be defended for the next two fights, because for the next two fights, Senicia Estrada is going to be campaigning as a minimum weight.
I understand the rule, I do.
The rule prevents situations like the situation we saw with Leo Santa Cruz at 126 and 130 pounds, to where you got this guy, he hasn't fought at 126 pounds in a while, yet he's still holding a title there. He picks up a title at 130 pounds.
This was well over a year ago.
And he's been up there ever since. He hasn't actually returned to the featherweight division where he still holds the WBA title. That WBA title has essentially been frozen. It hasn't been in circulation for well over a year, 2 years actually.
Because Leo hasn't campaigned as a featherweight in 2 years.
He hasn't been around to defend it. And that's what this rule from the WBO essentially prevents. It prevents a champion from going somewhere else and becoming a champion with someone else, staying up there, and
leaving a title in limbo,
unavailable for other fighters to fight for it. I don't imagine that Team Estrada are at all happy about this. I don't imagine they're welcoming this news, though once again, I understand the situation. I understand the rule.
It's unfortunate, but I get it.
You and Cambosos, what happens, Tank?
I'm whooping that ass. Tell him come see me.
How about you and Isaac Cruz?
I ain't got time. Tell him hold the belts. I'll whoop his ass for free.
Easy work.
No, not for free, but not for them damn belts. I don't want what, man? I know, but not for them damn belts. I don't want but not for them damn belts. I don't want
All right, we'll see you soon.
That was Gervonta Davis, WBA baby belt champion at 135 and 140 pounds. And we see here that Gervonta Davis, he places no emphasis on the prestige of becoming a unified champion, potentially becoming a unified champion by fighting George Kambosos Jr. George, who I don't actually expect him to fight.
I don't understand why Lou DiBella was so gung-ho for the shit.
Lou DiBella, who promotes George Kambosos Jr. in this part of the world. Lou DiBella, who seems to think that Gervonta Davis is the biggest money fight that George can have. Maybe it's the biggest money fight for Lou, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that this is the biggest money fight for George.
As I stated in my previous video, Gervonta Davis's opponents, when have you ever heard of them making life-altering cash?
Never.
Life-altering money, the kind of life-altering money it would take to get George Kambosos on board, to get him to acquiesce to being the B-side to Gervonta Davis, since Gervonta, he places no emphasis on George's belts and his status as a unified and or undisputed champion.
And if Gervonta don't care about George's belts,
then why are we even having this conversation?
because Lou DiBella thinks this is the biggest fight for George.
Lou DiBella, who promotes George Kambosos Jr., but he doesn't promote Gervonta Davis. Leonard Ellerbe and Floyd Mayweather, they promote Gervonta Davis, and the way they've been matching him, he hasn't been fighting for full-fledged world titles, attempting to become a unified and or undisputed champion at any of the weights he's campaigned, 130, 135, or 140 pounds.
I mean, he clearly doesn't care about belts.
So what do you get that he's the biggest and best fight for George Kambosos Jr., this division's unified and or undisputed champion to some, simply unified to others? Better still, where do you get that Gervonta Davis...
Where do you get that George has anything that Gervonta Davis wants?
Because Gervonta Davis always fights the best, the very best fighters that are out there. Because Gervonta Davis is striving to become an undisputed champion.
Where do you get that George has anything that Gervonta Davis wants?
George Kambosos beat the man to be the man in the traditional sense of the word. But tradition. Gervonta Davis and his team, they won't stand for it. They've been quite content having Gervonta fight for secondary titles, subsidiary titles, baby belts throughout 3 different divisions. I told you guys before, I don't know why people keep bringing up other fighters' names to Gervonta Davis when Gervonta Davis lives in a parallel universe.
Parallel to the sport of boxing.
Though not a part of it. Was he about to fight Devin Haney? Was he about to fight Teofimo Lopez? Were there any plans to do that? No, there weren't. So now that George Kambosos has what Teofimo Lopez had.
What fucking difference does that make? Gervonta Davis doesn't fight anybody.
This happens every time a fighter gets a significant win at 130 pounds or 135 pounds or even as high as 140 pounds. They'll start asking Gervonta Davis about the guy as if Gervonta Davis ever fucking fights anybody.
Guy doesn't fight shit.
It's not like he fought Vasyl Lomachenko or Tevin Farmer or Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney.
Not like he was about to either.
So what the fuck are we talking about here? If not for Lou DiBella, George Kambosos Jr.'s promoter, throwing Gervonta Davis's name into the hat because he's the one that put it there. No one else was expecting Gervonta Davis to take on George Kambosos or Teofimo Lopez before him.
If not for Ali Sekbak asking Gervonta about that fight.
What was Gervonta Davis prepared to do to get it? What was
Nothing.
Leonard Ellerbe and Mayweather Promotions? What were they going to do?
Nothing.
What did they do to get Vasyl Lomachenko in the ring?
Nothing.
Nada.
What were they trying to do to get Teofimo Lopez in the ring?
Nothing.
What were they trying to do to get Josh Taylor in the ring?
Nothing.
So what do I think George Kambosos' monumental win at lightweight, what do I think that means to Gervonta Davis and Leonard Ellerbe?
Nothing.
All these guys are doing by throwing Gervonta Davis' name into the hat is allowing Gervonta to ride George Kambosos Jr.'s wave because he's the one that got the monumental victory, not Gervonta.
Gervonta, who's going to be in action this Sunday.
On pay-per-view, which I won't be buying.
And it is what it is.
And finally, in middleweight news, Eddie Hearn had this to say. He says, if Golovkin wins versus Murata and doesn't get a third fight with Canelo, the next step is to further unify. After the Murata fight, if Gennady wins and then doesn't get the third Canelo fight, the next step is to further unify, Hearn told BoxingScene.com. If you're Gennady, that means you only got Charlo and Demetrius. Golovkin would likely have to strike a deal with Premier Boxing Champions, which was once discussed before he decided to work with DAZN to secure a fight with Charlo. Conversely, Golovkin and Andrade already fight on the same platform and share the same stateside promoter. Providence's Andrade just fought in his 6th main event on DAZN, knocking out Ireland's Jason Quigley inside of 2 rounds last month. Look, it's not like Demetrius' previous performances have been the ones for other middleweights to hide behind their sofas in fear. No turn. He's looked beatable before. Charlo and Golovkin would probably both be favorites in the betting, and they still won't fight him. But we'll see. Demetrius wants to unify and has repeated that there are plenty of fights to get done over here on DAZN. So let's make them. Demetrius Andrade, who earlier this week was ordered by the WBO to defend his WBO title against his mandatory challenger, Yanibek Alimkhanuly, which I find very peculiar, I find very strange because he's already satisfied a mandatory this year.
Liam Williams.
That fight was ordered earlier this year, and that mandatory was satisfied earlier this year. So what you have to ask yourself is, why is the WBO ordering Demetrius Andrade to satisfy 2 mandatories in the same calendar year?
They gave them 20 days to strike a deal.
20 days from the order coming down. It's actually 19 days now. They're working on the clock. This is a critical moment for Demetrius Andrade because beyond a Yanibek fight is the kind of fight that he's been looking for all his career.
Yanibek is a live animal.
He has all the makings of a guy who could upset the apple cart for reigning 2-division WBO champion Demetrius Andrade, though he could use a bit more seasoning. He could use a bit more bring-along, though he wants the fight now, and he's been very vocal about that the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. He may yet get what he wants.
Give it to me straight, Johnny.
Can Demetrius Andrade beat this guy? There's a good enough chance that he can. Demetrius is far more experienced as a professional than Yanibek Alimkhanuly is. Demetrius Andrade's been a world champion at junior middleweight and middleweight. He's no champion of happenstance, no champion of chance. He's defended that title.
How does he win this fight?
I'll tell you how he wins this fight, with a good lead hand and 2 good feet. Yanibek Alimkhanuly's an action guy. He wants to punch. He wants to bring the pain, as it were. And it's up to Demetrius Andrade to slow him down. Slow the fight down. Keep it a chess match behind that lead hand.
They're both southpaws.
So the both of them have different base styles. I would liken Yanibek Alimkhanuly to more of a boxer-puncher with a tendency to apply pressure, whereas Demetrius, he lives somewhere between a pure boxer and a boxer-puncher. He can summon the finer qualities of both of those base styles. I know that Demetrius Andrade's resume is lacking greatly.
But as far as base styles, that's where he is.
He can be that economic stick-and-move jabber, that safety-first fighter. He can do that, but he can also be the guy that he was with Jason Quigley very recently.
He can go for the kill when he smells blood.
Because the WBO ordered this fight, he's got to get through this guy. If he forfeits his WBO title, Golovkin won't have any incentive to fight him. It won't be a unification match.
He's got to get to the other side of this fight.
That's what he has to do, and it really isn't even a foregone conclusion that he does. Yanibek Alimkhanuly is one of the more promising, unbeaten up-and-comers in the middleweight division. More so than Esquiva Falcao. I'd say Brazil's own Esquiva Falcao. I have to say that Yanibek Alimkhanuly is a grave and credible threat to just about any champion's reign in this division, save Gennady Golovkin, who he doesn't seem to be targeting because that's his countryman. Demetrius Andrade finds himself in quite a pickle indeed. And if the Golovkin versus Murata fight goes through, the fight that is now in jeopardy due to Japan closing its borders to foreigners as a result of the Omicron variant,
COVID-19.
it's not just jeopardizing Golovkin versus Murata, it's also jeopardizing the proposed Ioka versus Ancajas unification match in the super flyweight division. I'm sure you've heard some news circulating in reference to this.
I'm holding out hope that all those fights happen.
It is an evolving situation to where, here and now, we just don't have the answers. Will Golovkin versus Murata actually get over the line, given the situation with border control in Japan? Will that fight get scrapped? And if it does get scrapped, will Demetrius be available?
Can they get him out of this mandatory situation with the Golovkin fight?
Assuming Gennady even wants to fight him in that scenario, in that situation, it is all very immaterial right now. I just don't know.
I haven't heard Eddie Hearn and Demetrius weigh in on the mandate.
What do they have to say about it?